As many of you know, I was not a big fan of the MoonSwatch, so I made a video about it. And while the feedback I got was mostly positive, there was some pushback as well. I ended up with two takeaways. One, that my comments section, which was overwhelmingly positive, was somewhat illustrative of the divide I was seeing between the content creators and their audience. And two, why wasn't anyone advocating for quality watches over hype and flash? Why didn't anyone see this as an opportunity to talk about better alternatives? The MoonSwatch is $260. As many of my critics argued in the comment section of that video, that's a lot of money for some people. Well, they're not wrong about that. For some people, that's a nice chunk of change. And as a person who loves watches, loves quality, and so many different brands, I thought I would share my more constructive vision as to why people shouldn't waste their money on the MoonSwatch. Here are some amazing alternatives to the MoonSwatch for under $300. Let's talk about one of my favorite brands, Timex. I own a few vintage Timexes that I probably paid way too much for, and a couple modern ones as well. Timex has so much to offer at this price point. Great designs, classic reboots, and if you prefer the accuracy of a quartz movement over mechanical, then the prices become even more affordable. You have the Marlin, which is one of many of the mechanical watches offered by Timex. The Marlin is Timex's throwback dress watch from the 1960s in terms of style and size. It has a hand-wind seagull movement, so it's a very thin watch. If you like something more sporty, I own the Timex Navy Harbor. This fun little diver-style watch has 100 meters of water resistance. So not only is it splash-proof, but you can actually go swimming with it, which is more than I can say for that crappy Swatch. Obviously, there's a lot to Timex's catalog, and I would rather have many of these watches. Some of them so inexpensive you could have 2 or even 4 fun, cool Timexes for the same price as the MoonSwatch. Then there's G-Shock. No collection would be complete without a G-Shock. Some of us love them because they're super rugged, super affordable, and they offer tons of fun designs. Others love them because they have a soft spot in their hearts for Casio. Back before every 7-year-old had an iPhone, a lot of kids had Casios. Everyone remembers having one of these watches growing up. The alarm would go off at the most inopportune times, and you would have absolutely no idea how to turn it off. But your parents bought it for you because they were affordable and easy to replace if you lost it. G-Shocks are the grown-up version of that. The DW5600 is one of the G-Shocks that I own. Even though it's a lot smaller than some of the other models, it still has plenty of capability. 200 meters of water resistance, shock resistance, an alarm, a stopwatch, and of course that iconic LED backlight. I also own the solar-powered GWB5600 with the red backlight because it's really affordable to own both. I mostly wear my G-Shocks to the gym or when I'm lifting weights. Basically, I wear my G-Shocks anytime I'm worried about potentially banging my mechanical watches and damaging the case or movement. Now let's talk about Seiko. As many of you know, I am a Seiko fangirl. We have talked a little bit about some of the issues with the brand on this channel. However, Seiko is still an excellent value and a great option for new enthusiasts. There are over 2,000 different Seiko 5 models to choose from. Diver-style watches with enough water resistance that you can go swimming with, if not actually diving. Dress watches, field watches. If you can't find a Seiko 5 model that speaks to you, then you're not looking hard enough. Not to mention all the quartz options that Seiko has available. Great value, interesting design language, and a much more rugged and reliable watch regardless of whether you decide to go quartz or mechanical. Then there's all the micro brands. Now, I don't know that much about micro brands, but I do have this Dan Henry 1970. I'm not going to go into all the details about this watch, but it cost me less than $300 and it's a great looking watch with a reliable Seiko movement. My point is there are so many small brands out there that are making cool watches that are more interesting and better made than the MoonSwatch at a similar price point. If you're the least bit curious about the different micro brands that are out there, then you should check out the Time Teller's channel. He has done a lot of videos of many different micro brands. If there's one company whose name is currently synonymous with value at the price point in question, it's Orient. There are countless Orient models in the same price range, and even the ones that retail for more can be found on sale for a similar price. There's the diver range with the Blu-rays, the Makos, and the Komatsu, just to name a few, all offering great value, 200 meters of water resistance, and the Komatsu specifically has a sapphire crystal. Although it's true that this model technically retails for $400, you can find it on sale for under $250 pretty easily. One of my favorite lines that Orient offers is all of the different Bambino models. These are some great entry-level watches that will last you years, not some plastic atrocity that's going to bleed color onto your wrist or have the crystal break if someone breathes on it too hard. With Orient, you're just getting a lot more watch for your money than with that awful MoonSwatch. If I haven't been clear, I don't hate Swatch. I just don't see the value of the MoonSwatch, and I don't like the way it was marketed. Swatch makes some really fun watches that cost less than the MoonSwatch, and in my opinion are a lot cooler due to their original design, as opposed to being a plastic quartz-powered moon watch. Honestly, if I was gonna buy a Swatch, I'd rather have a Systems 51. Just look at all these cool designs. This collaboration with Hodinkee is a lot of fun, and it actually costs less than the MoonSwatch. That's right, I'm including Swatch as an alternative to the MoonSwatch, not to mention all the great vintage options available. I have a few vintage Seikos and vintage Timexes. Some of them need to be repaired and serviced, but I think that's part of the fun of collecting vintage watches. You can go on eBay and pick up a couple or even a few vintage watches for the same amount of money that you would spend on the MoonSwatch. The bottom line is this: the majority of people aren't clamoring for the MoonSwatch because they love the Omega Speedmaster. Many of them haven't even heard of it. They want it because they think they're getting an Omega on the cheap. But they're not. They're getting an overpriced Swatch, and a pretty crappy one at that. Most of those people will never see this video, and that's fine. But hopefully, a few of them might. And if I can just steer a couple of watch newbies in the direction of good watches, I'll be thrilled.